This is the first time that I'm speaking about it. It's something that I'll never forget.
A former assistant to Sean Diddy Combs speaking out in the new interview with new allegations about wild parties.
The entertainment industry has always been a place where ambition meets opportunity, but behind the glitz and glamour lies an underbelly so dark it almost defies belief. Recently, the spotlight has turned toward one of its most prominent figures, Sean Diddy Combs, and the allegations that continue to surface are nothing short of chilling. What began as whispers has now erupted into a storm of accusations and revelations, with actor Terrence Howard stepping forward to share his first-hand account of just how far this darkness may reach. And let's be clear, the details he's revealed are hard to stomach, not just because of their content, but because of the sheer scope of complicity that surrounds them.
You know, there's a short life in
Why do you think that is with the creative side?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take. You're going through so much to try and deal with life.
It all began when Terrence, known for his work on screen and his candid demeanor off it, dropped a bombshell during a recent interview. His words weren't just a recounting of a personal experience. They were a scathing indictment of an industry that, according to him, thrives on the exploitation of the vulnerable. He spoke of a phone call he received from Diddy, ostensibly an invitation to discuss acting techniques. On paper, it sounded innocent enough, one mogul seeking advice from another seasoned performer. But the reality, as Terrence describes it, was something else entirely. He arrived expecting to talk scripts and character work, only to find himself in what felt like a meticulously orchestrated trap. The details are surreal. Awkward silences, lingering glances, and a palpable tension that made it clear this was no ordinary meeting.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me.
Terrence didn't mince words about the moment he realized what was happening. He described a setting where the professional pretense evaporated as Diddy's true intentions became unmistakable. According to Terrence, this wasn't about acting at all. It was about control, power, and something far more invasive. He left immediately, cutting off all communication, but the encounter stayed with him, a grim reminder of how even the most successful figures in Hollywood aren't exempt from such predatory tactics. What's worse, Terrence revealed that this wasn't an isolated incident. After distancing himself from Diddy, he says he was approached by other industry insiders, producers, executives, gatekeepers, offering the same twisted proposition under different guises. And each time, their message was clear: compromise your principles or watch your opportunities vanish.
A lot of times you would have him with a younger female, and there's a power dynamic there. A more impressionable girl is easier to reel in. Consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations to understand the consent.
But as shocking as Terrence's experience is, it's what he revealed next that has truly shaken the public. Turning his attention to his younger co-star on the hit show Empire, Bryshere Gray, Terrence painted a heartbreaking picture of a young man who was allegedly ensnared by the same forces he himself had narrowly escaped. According to Terrence, Bryshere, just a teenager at the time, was targeted by Diddy and others in a manner that left him emotionally shattered and irrevocably changed. The word Terrence used to describe the transformation he witnessed on set was damaged, and that damage was visible for all to see. Each day as they filmed, Bryshere appeared more withdrawn. His spark dimmed, his confidence eroded. It was as though he was carrying a weight too heavy for someone his age to bear.
How does it feel wearing? You know, it's some good fabric, but it takes us back to the New Edition days.
This brings us to one of the most disturbing elements of Terrence's account, the alleged involvement of Bryshere's own mother, Andrea Mayberry. Terrence claims that Andrea not only knew what was happening to her son, but actively enabled it, motivated by the financial rewards it brought. He wasn't the first to suggest this. Musician Jaguar Wright had previously accused Andrea of turning a blind eye to her son's exploitation, but hearing it from Terrence, someone who worked so closely with Bryshere, added a new layer of credibility to the claims. Andrea, according to these allegations, allowed her son to be handed over to industry power players like Diddy, despite knowing the psychological toll it was taking on him. The image of a mother, someone meant to protect and nurture, allegedly facilitating such harm, is almost too much to comprehend.
And I know you said he explained all of the items that were involved in these Wild King nights. Did he mention who would participate as well?
A lot of them were unknown to him. He did mention that a lot of the women were very, very young as 20, not underage, but certainly.
If Andrea's alleged complicity wasn't shocking enough, Terrence also implicated Bryshere's former manager, Charlie Mack, as a key figure in this sordid tale. According to Jaguar Wright, who corroborated Terrence's account in a separate interview, Charlie Mack worked hand-in-hand with Andrea to orchestrate Bryshere's involvement in situations that left him vulnerable to manipulation and abuse. The claim suggests that Charlie saw Bryshere as nothing more than a pawn, a means to an end, and that he was willing to cross any line to achieve his goals. Jaguar even alleged that Charlie's motivations weren't just financial, they were personal, rooted in desires and ambitions that turned a young artist's dreams into a waking nightmare.
He was responsible for Diddy's day-to-day life, so he is able to provide a lot of information about what that life was like. He goes into detail on extensive use.
Terrence's revelations didn't stop there. He described how the industry's most insidious tactic is its ability to strip people of their identity, their sense of self. He used the term losing your man card to illustrate what happens when someone is coerced into situations that compromise their dignity. It's not just about the act itself, he explained. It's about the lasting impact, the spiritual and emotional scars that never fully heal. You give up your ability, your right to being a man, Terrence said, his voice heavy with conviction. When you give up that man card, you don't get that back. These words, simple yet profound, encapsulate the deeper tragedy of this entire saga. It's not just about the individuals who were targeted. It's about the irreversible damage done to their sense of identity, their ability to reclaim who they are.
Card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying.
Perhaps the most haunting aspect of Terrence's account is its broader implications. If even someone as talented and promising as Bryshere could be subjected to this level of harm, what does that say about the countless others who never had their stories told? And if these actions were allegedly sanctioned, or at least ignored, by those closest to the victims, how can anyone hope to fight back against a system so deeply entrenched in exploitation? Terrence's words suggest that this isn't just a problem confined to a handful of bad actors. It's a systemic issue, one that thrives on silence, complicity, and the dehumanization of those who dare to dream.
That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid,
As Terrence continued to speak, he made it clear that his goal wasn't just to expose what had happened, but to shed light on the broader culture that allows it to persist. He pointed to the way power dynamics in Hollywood are weaponized, how opportunities are dangled like bait to lure the vulnerable into compromising situations. And once someone is ensnared, the system works overtime to keep them there, using everything from financial incentives to emotional manipulation to ensure they're silent. Terrence's message was unflinching. This isn't just about individual predators. It's about an entire industry built on a foundation of exploitation.
In the moment, it just felt like, what? Like, is this fun for him? Is this a test?
But even as Terrence laid bare these disturbing truths, he hinted that there was more to come. More stories, more revelations, more voices ready to speak out. Because if there's one thing his account makes clear, it's that this is only the beginning. The real question isn't whether more will surface, it's how far this darkness truly goes. And yet, as disturbing as Terrence's revelations may be, they're only the tip of an iceberg that seems to grow darker and colder the deeper you dive. Because what Terrence alluded to, almost in passing, is the calculated way in which Diddy allegedly operates, not just as an individual, but as the orchestrator of something much larger, something that thrives on secrecy and thrives on fear. This isn't just about one man's alleged behavior. It's about a system of influence so pervasive that even the whispers of its existence are enough to make the most seasoned celebrities fall silent. And if Terrence's account was a bombshell, then Jaguar Wright's follow-up was nothing less than a detonation.
If you're a halfway intelligent person, when do you start questioning how lucky some keep getting?
Right.
Jaguar, never one to mince words, didn't just corroborate Terrence's claims. she took them further, peeling back layer after layer of what she described as Hollywood's most grotesque open secret. According to Jaguar, what happened to Bryshere Gray wasn't some unfortunate anomaly. It was part of a well-oiled machine, one designed to extract everything it could from the young, the ambitious, and the vulnerable, leaving nothing behind but hollowed-out shells of the people they once were. She named names, too. Names that sent shockwaves through an industry already reeling from the fallout of Terrence's interview. And at the center of it all, Jaguar said, was Diddy.
The both worlds. Nobody talks about that.
Nobody talks about this shit.
Nobody talks about that project.
That's smooth under the rug.
Why?
Diddy, she claimed, had a modus operandi: target those who had something to lose, something to prove, or something to hide. The more desperate the individual, the more likely they were to fall into his orbit. And once they were there, Jaguar said, they were trapped. The promises of fame, fortune, and opportunity were just the bait. The real game, as she described it, was control, complete and total. She painted a picture of a man who thrived on power plays, who relished in turning those around him into pawns in his own twisted chess game. And Bryshere, he was just one of many.
Did Phil explain why he's speaking out now?
He said he's speaking out because he believes Diddy's a predator. He wants accountability, and he doesn't want someone like this to run unchecked in the future.
But what makes Bryshere's story so particularly harrowing is the role his mother and manager allegedly played in his downfall. According to Jaguar, Andrea Mayberry and Charlie Mack didn't just enable what happened to Bryshere, they orchestrated it. Jaguar described private conversations she had with Andrea, in which the mother allegedly admitted to knowing exactly what was happening to her son but felt powerless or perhaps unwilling to stop it. And Charlie? Jaguar didn't hold back, accusing him of being the direct link between Bryshere and Diddy, the one who allegedly sold the young actor into a world he couldn't possibly have understood. Jaguar also made a startling claim about how this arrangement allegedly came to be. She said that Bryshere, still a teenager, was essentially handed over to Diddy as part of a larger deal, one that involved not just money, but influence. Favors exchanged behind closed doors, promises made in whispers. And while the details of this alleged arrangement remain murky, one thing is clear. If what Jaguar says is true, then Bryshere was betrayed by the very people who were supposed to protect him.
Really a conspiracy if the same person keeps benefiting off the same kind of tragedy over and over?
The consequences of this betrayal, as described by both Terrence and Jaguar, are nothing short of devastating. Bryshere, they said, was left broken, not just emotionally, but spiritually. He turned to unhealthy coping mechanisms, isolating himself from those who cared about him and lashing out at those who didn't. His once bright future dimmed, and the young man who had once been full of promise became a shadow of his former self. And the industry? It moved on, as it always does, leaving Bryshere to pick up the pieces on his own. But Jaguar didn't stop there. She claimed that Bryshere isn't the only one. She spoke of other young men, other rising stars, who allegedly found themselves ensnared in the same web. Some, she said, managed to escape, though not without scars. Others weren't so lucky. And while she didn't name names, her words left little doubt. This isn't an isolated incident. It's a pattern, one that's been allowed to continue unchecked for far too long. And then there's the tape. Yes, the tape. Jaguar dropped this bombshell almost casually, as though it were just another detail in an already convoluted story. She claimed to have seen a video, one that allegedly shows Diddy, Will Smith, Bryshere, and others engaging in behavior that can only be described as deeply compromising. The existence of this tape, if true, raises even more questions than it answers. Who filmed it? Why? And perhaps most importantly, who else has seen it?
You are literally, it's an unhealthy space. And so eventually you're going to go too far, you know? Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what he had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head. You know, but when you lose your man card.
Jaguar's claims about the tape add another layer of complexity to an already tangled narrative. If such a tape exists, it could be the smoking gun that brings down not just Diddy, but an entire network of enablers and accomplices. But it could also explain why so many people have remained silent for so long. After all, in an industry where image is everything, the threat of exposure is a powerful weapon. And if Diddy truly has such a tape, it would give him leverage over some of the most powerful people in Hollywood. But here's where things get even more sinister. According to sources close to Jaguar, the existence of this tape isn't just a whispered rumor. It's allegedly part of a larger collection of recordings that Diddy is said to have accumulated over years. These tapes, if they exist, are rumored to feature not just up-and-coming stars like Bryshere, but also some of the biggest names in the industry. The alleged purpose? To keep those who attended his infamous gatherings in line, ensuring their silence and complicity. It's a chilling thought, a digital time bomb of blackmail material hidden in plain sight, quietly exerting influence over some of the most powerful players in entertainment.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head.
Jaguar also hinted that she isn't the only one who has seen at least portions of these alleged recordings. She mentioned unnamed insiders, people who once worked closely with Diddy, who have reportedly seen footage that they claim could dismantle entire careers. These insiders, Jaguar suggested, are now divided. Some are desperate to cut ties and distance themselves, while others are continuing to protect Diddy in the hopes of avoiding their own exposure. It's a high-stakes game of silence and survival, where the price of speaking out could mean losing everything, but the cost of staying quiet is complicit guilt.
Will you help me? I want to hear your music, so I come over there and I play the music, and he's sitting there, just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, you know, he wants to hang out with you next week, and I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to you. That's what my assistant said. I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication.
And then there's the question of how far-reaching these alleged recordings might be. Some speculate that they could involve individuals far outside the entertainment world, politicians, business moguls, even international figures, people who, for one reason or another, found themselves caught in the web of Diddy's carefully curated social circles. If true, this wouldn't just be a Hollywood scandal, it would be a global one, with ramifications that could ripple far beyond the red carpets and studios where it all began. The very idea is enough to make you wonder just how deep this rabbit hole really goes, and who else might be silently bracing for impact. But while the existence of the tape remains unconfirmed, its mere mention has already sent ripples through the industry. Some have dismissed it as a baseless rumor, while others have taken it as further proof of Hollywood's darkest secrets. And as the whispers grow louder, so too do the calls for accountability. Because if there's one thing this saga has made clear, it's that the time for silence is over. And yet, even as the walls begin to close in, Diddy himself remains defiant. Through his representatives, he's denied all allegations, dismissing them as baseless and defamatory, but the court of public opinion is less easily swayed, and with every new revelation, his carefully constructed image begins to crumble. The man once hailed as a visionary, a trailblazer, now finds himself at the center of a scandal that threatens to overshadow everything he's ever accomplished.
I've lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that because the man card means everything.
So where does this leave us? With more questions than answers, certainly, but also with a growing sense that this is far from over. Because if the stories of Terrence, Jaguar, and Bryshere have taught us anything, it's that the truth has a way of coming out, no matter how deeply it's buried. And in an industry built on illusion, that truth could be the most powerful force of all. But what do you think? Are these revelations the beginning of a long overdue reckoning, or just another chapter in Hollywood's endless cycle of scandal and cover-up? And what does it say about the industry that so many of its brightest stars have found themselves caught in its darkest corners? Let us know your thoughts down below, and trust us, this isn't the last we've heard of this. See you in the next one.